And here we are for episode 18 of CUZZO-OP. My name is Isaiah. I'm your host tonight. You know, here at CUZZO-OP, you always find two cousins, one podcast, and endless entertainment. So I'm one cousin, and I'm joined by my brother and my cousin,
Willie, also known as Arrow. I'm the other cousin. Hello.
And so we're excited to be here tonight. We're going to jump into a topic that it just has to happen. And that's how I feel about it. It just has to happen. We're going to dive in. Willie, why don't you just tell them what you want to go through this evening?
You know, something that we've done here on CUZZO-OP and something that we're going to continue to do is whenever something that it could be considered monumental or part of something monumental is about to release, we're just going to go back, recap what has come before it. We did it with the MCU when Ant-Man was releasing. We did it with Star Wars as we got closer to The Mandalorian Season 3. And now, today, we're going to do that with the DC Universe, the DCEU, and like DC Studios. Talk a little bit about that as The Flash approaches, because The Flash is something monumental for this universe. So, you know, we've spoken DC before, but now we really get to dive in on our feelings about what's being put out there into this entertainment franchise. So that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight.
I think it's time we jump right in, bro.
The first movie in this universe, 2013's Man of Steel. The first Superman movie since 2006. Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. This one brought in Henry Cavill. And one of the biggest critiques of this movie, I'm going to jump right into it, is that the character doesn't feel like Superman to a lot of people. And so for me, compared to when I first watched this movie in 2013 to rewatching it over the last few years, as I've gained an incredibly deeper appreciation for the character of Superman, I can understand it. But at the same time, I feel like it is still Superman, just in a different lens. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I like DC more than I like Marvel in general, is because I feel like these different lenses work so well with DC and rarely do with Marvel. Like, with Superman in this version, I can see where this character is going under this different lens, under these different aspects. Same with characters that we're going to talk about later. But for this, I just think that it dared to challenge the traditional Boy Scout Superman in an interesting way that we never got to see come all the way around.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the way to look at it is the way that we would look at, right now, Spider-Man is really big, right? The multiverse concept is really big in Spider-Man, especially with Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse right now. I just think multiverse is a great way to use it's an analogy for this situation. I think that this is just a version of Superman. Just like the version we expect, which is that guy that you're talking about, that Boy Scout dude who got Lois Lane and his reason for fighting his Lois Lane, but in a super cheesy, like 90s vibe type of way. Like, at the end of the day, this is just a different version, just like the multi-versions in Into the Spider-Verse, the multiverse concept. So all that being said, man, I just think that you're right. I think that there's a grittiness to this that comes from Snyder, and Snyder is the only person that I think can make that grit not be corny. I don't know how to describe it other than that. The movie doesn't come off corny in any way. I think it's actually a very beautiful story.
I think it is definitely mostly beautiful. Number one, to your point about multiverse, I think something I was going to just probably throw in at the end of this entire conversation, I'm just going to say it now at the beginning. A lot of these movies, especially the movies directed by Snyder, work as great, not your primary world films. The characters work as depictions of these characters that I would love to see if it weren't my main world, if it weren't my main story. So that's how I feel about that. But for Man of Steel, like you said, there's a beautiful human aspect to the character of Superman that this movie tries to explore, and there are strengths and weaknesses there. There's two big weaknesses in this film for me. Number one, Lois Lane. I can't freaking stand Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I hate it. I hate it. I think she's terrible as Lois Lane, and I don't know. It's mixed between her acting and the way they wrote the character of Lois Lane. I hate it all. She's Vicky Vale, sure. Lois Lane, nah.
Wow.
Number two, I believe that Clark Kent and everything surrounding Clark Kent is great, but at the same time, it's like only great because Henry pulls it off so well. And even then, like, I think playing Clark is the hardest part of playing Superman. I think it's easy to play Superman, but you got to nail Clark. I don't know if Henry nailed Clark. And honestly, everything surrounding Clark kind of feels weird, especially with the worst scene in the movie, in my opinion, the death of Jonathan Kent being not it, just not it. Because something that's important, even in these multiversal depictions, I feel like, are like when Superman can't save somebody, or specifically his father's death hits when it's not something Superman could have saved them from. But then at the same time, if I really look at it and if I really want to dig deep and support the reasoning behind why they did that, it's he could have saved him, but his father was trying to teach him that lesson of like this. His father really kind of just believed like the world couldn't handle Superman, and so that's a little shaky. But I'm like, I get both points. I could see this world's retelling of the story, and yet my Superman love is like, I don't like that either. So it's a mix. It's a mix. But
Yeah,
everybody,
it's the dad trying to rip the cape off of Superman, which is quite ironic. You know what I mean? You know, and I look at that, and I like that depth that Snyder is able to reach, and he does it, and he does it in an abstract way. Sometimes I think Man of Steel might be his most uniform or cleanest film. I think that after this movie, he took certain chances with everything else he did going forward. So it was almost like he played it safe, and from here it becomes a whole nother beast.
Michael Shannon as General Zod was fantastic.
Bro, amazing.
And I remember us talking about it back in 2013 about how fantastic it was to see him as Zod. It was he was great.
I'm so excited to see him return for Flash,
Yes,
bro.
he is honestly the reason why I'm probably really excited for that movie, just to see him come back into that character. And then something that I really want to give this movie credit for, if there's anything that I'm going to give this movie credit for, is the score. Hans Zimmer. Superman arguably has the most iconic superhero theme of all time. And so how do you come and handle that character and make something of your own? Well, he did it. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of just music for a score of a film that I've ever heard. That it's in my playlist, bro. And they use it so many times. And that's something about these Snyder movies. Their music, I feel like it does land. And you know, I've critiqued Hans Zimmer for only really trying to go for epicness, but his Superman theme is like, nah.
It's muted. It's muted. Yeah.
Love the score. And then the action in this movie, you know, it's just crazy to see what they can do with modern CG.
It hit with a certain amount of like violent rush in each fight that Marvel was not doing. It made it stand out, you know what I mean? And that's why I like this movie's combat so much, and the violence that happens in this movie. It's just like that final scene, the way they're fighting, bro, you feel them being super beings on Earth. It's just well done.
Yes. Even in Avengers with all the destruction, like not I don't want to say it felt floaty or anything like that, but like here there's weight. The sonic punch, like the sound design of the punches, the ripple effects of the air, it's all there to sell you that these are gods fighting on this planet. And that's going to be an interesting take. I want to hear from you in regards to Man of Steel and our next film, the depiction of Superman as a Jesus Christ figure. But overall, with the end of Man of Steel and this little short spiel, I'm going to say it now. This is my favorite movie in the DCEU most of the time. There's only one film that, depending on the day, you'll catch me saying that it is my favorite. But most of the time, I will tell you that this movie is my favorite movie in this universe.
I respect that though.
But I also hope that next time we get a Superman, which we know we're getting soon, he's written nothing like this.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's a perfect way to just jump right into BBS, right? That's the next film, 2016, 3 years later after Man of Steel. I remember being excited to hear that we were going to get an on-screen depiction of two major heroes, most important heroes of all time, superheroes of all time. This is the type of stuff we were going on YouTube in high school and middle school to watch people act up and dress like and fight on the internet. Like, this is happening live on the big screen. You know, they're putting lots of money behind this. It's going to be made by the guy who made Man of Steel. I'm gassed. I'm so gassed. I remember going to see the movie, and I remember leaving and feeling so weird. I felt so weird because it was this it was this level of like, man, I really expected that to be amazing. And so because I wanted so much from it, when it came, and it not only, in my opinion, underperformed, but in the sense of like, they shifted gears so hard on what was going on in Man of Steel and how the story of Man of Steel was told. I just think Zack Snyder got crazy in this film, bro. There is an insane amount of abstract storytelling, allegorical. You mentioned Jesus. You mentioned the Christianity in this the savior complex. I think they wrote so deeply, but there are so many places where it's like the normal viewer doesn't know what the heck is going on. And I think that that's Snyder getting a little weird with the way he tells his stories. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's much like Glass Onion or movies that come with layers. People think that that's unimpressive or that the writing isn't clear enough for it to just be a good movie, but they don't realize if you dig in and you keep watching, you start to notice that certain scenes mean certain things, and the way that scene is followed up by this scene, like Zack Snyder sat there and thought through all these pieces. And so that's how I feel about BVS. We could jump deep into whatever you want to, but just setting the stage, that's how I came into BVS, and now I have an appreciation for it that's very different than the day I saw it.
I believe that if you've watched the Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition, that is the superior film that the studio didn't let him release until the DVD cuts. That film is superior, and yet it still has problems that I find in it. For example, I feel like Henry Cavill is incredibly underutilized in this movie. In the original film, he only had like 30 or 60 something lines, like as a titular character in the movie. That is incredibly low.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand.
But then at the same time, like you said, they have those deep layers where it's like, yeah, but like it still feels all right, especially in the ultimate cut. He's used better in that. Something about this movie that I've seen a lot of back and forth on is Ben Affleck as Batman, as Bruce Wayne, and I think he's great. He was, before Robert Pattinson, my favorite live action depiction of Batman and Bruce Wayne so far.
I hear that, man. I mean, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think he's exactly what we want to see. Like when we talk about what we talked about Man of Steel and it being a variation or a multiversal depiction, I just think this is what it's supposed to feel like to see a Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne, especially because he's incredibly charming as Bruce, but you can tell that his Bruce is a mask. And I love that as an audience member, being able to see that transition that, oh, I'm a smiling billionaire. And as soon as there's nobody else around, he's Batman without the cowl.
Yeah, oh, ha, 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 ha. I need to get out of here, Alfred. That's just such a great switch. Yeah, he kills that.
You know, speaking of kills, people hate that he kills in this movie. And for me, it's only a problem because we never got to see him when he wasn't like this. If we had gotten in between this 3-year period of Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, a story of who he was before he turned to this, before he just had crossed this line, people might receive it better. I receive it just fine. And I actually watched the movie. I watched all these movies again to prepare for this. And I feel like people might overhype how many kills he actually does have in this movie. But he's a brutal Batman. And like we spoke about with this feeling different but similar, like people can't tell me he doesn't feel like Batman just with a little bit of a kick, with a little bit of an edge. He feels like Batman. He has the greatest live action Batman fight scene of all time right now. Like, you're not going to tell me he doesn't own that.
Yeah, I hear that.
He has the greatest, depending on who you ask, live action bat suit of all time in this movie. Ben Affleck looks like Batman. He plays that role very well, and I'm just upset that we never got to see his full potential as him in his own film.
Yeah, to be honest, bro, he's another person I'm looking forward to seeing in The Flash.
I am also looking forward to seeing him in The Flash. Another character that we can't not talk about while discussing this film is Lex Luthor, because I think that he's written incredibly well. And would anybody have a problem with it if he were played by somebody with a deeper voice? Would anybody have a problem with it if it were Clancy Brown? If Clancy Brown were here delivering that performance, do people have a problem with this still? Lex Luthor is written incredibly intelligently. It's just different for people. It is not the bald, well, Superman, yada, 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 you know? He is very just, people say Riddlery, which I could hear that, but at the same time, like, I think this dude is genius. The way he does a lot of these plans in this movie.
All I'm saying is, I agree with you, right? The reason why Lex Luthor is such an incredible villain is because he is exactly opposite the person that Superman is. That is why they have such a great relationship. And if you think about it, DC is built on these relationships more than Marvel. It is a human rivalry that exists in almost every hero you talk about in DC. And I feel like there are those rivalries in Marvel, but it's the story is built on this dynamic. The character development is based on this tension between the villain and the hero. So we got Superman, and we had a villain that wasn't his main villain in the comics. Superman's main villain is Lex Luthor, the guy that has the kryptonite, the guy that knows how to take him down. So I think what Snyder was able to do in this movie was create a person that's so exactly opposite of who Clark Kent, aka Superman, is in this universe, that there's a tension that exists throughout the writing and the subtext of everything that has to do with Lex Luthor's relationship with Superman. And I appreciate that very greatly. The reason why I appreciate it is because the same way I love that Batman and Joker will forever be on the opposite ends of the spectrum, it keeps you pulled in between the development of the hero realizing that he can be beaten and having to overcome something inside themselves to be able to progress. And they just wrote the perfect villain to bring that out of Superman in this movie, in my opinion. I'm not saying he was used well. I'm just saying that Lex is so well executed by Jesse that it's just like you're so pulled in, you almost want to root for him just based off of the fact that he's selling you what he sold himself. It's insane the way that they stuck the landing for this guy. Now, in the theater, this is weird. It's not easy to swallow. It's really deep. There are some lines he says where it just sounds like he's monologuing out of nowhere.
Yes, it's a very rough first viewing experience because there's so much to dive into later on.
When you keep pulling the layers down and back and you watch more and more and you explore these characters in this world, you start to pick up how brilliant this character really is. And I think it makes the movie. I don't think you can fully get how good the movie is without first getting that part. In my opinion, I think he's major. What about you? Do you agree?
Yes, he's major. He is incredibly major. He's just the methodicalness and the brilliantness is there, and it plays into that whole Jesus talk that we were saying for a little bit earlier of him saying like gods don't come from the skies above, they come from below, and God cannot be all powerful and all good. Like it's all there. He's a very well written, in my opinion. Of course, I know, like I said, people gonna hate on it, but I enjoy him in this movie a lot, and it's just another character that I wish we could have seen reach their full potential. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman was fantastic. I really don't have any issues with her, other than I feel like maybe she was a little bit shoehorned in the movie, but whatever.
I agree with you. I mean, but that's okay. It's okay because when we see her next, they do her justice.
Doomsday definitely shoehorned into the movie, and it feels like that's an entirely another film tagged on at the end of this film. And last but not least, the most controversial moment in DC movie history and probably comic book movie history, Martha. I think Martha is an incredibly complex concept that works incredibly well on paper. And the way it was executed was rough. It was rough because that might come off a little bit corny, but when you peel back those layers and you explore that it's really Bruce Wayne who's lost his humanity and him trying to protect humanity so much from someone who has more humanity than him in that moment, craziness. When the last words of his father was Martha, I couldn't save Martha, Martha. And then Superman, assuming he's on his dying breath, Martha, my mother. On paper, this shit is written so good, but the execution is so rough, man.
They butchered it, but did the director's cut fix that at all, or does it still come off butchered?
No, it comes off butchered. No. And then Amy Adams comes through and ruins that moment for me too. That's his mother's name.
Yeah, I know. No, actually, you got me on your. I'm on the same. I'm in that bandwagon now. I actually did not appreciate her too much, to be honest.
That being said, I love Batman versus Superman. You know, even though I have it at 8 out of 10, love the movie. Up next, the first film that for me I can say I dislike. I don't like this movie, and it was my least favorite for so long. Suicide Squad 2016. Amanda Waller and her Task Force X. Bro, summer 2016, you and I, we got shipped away to camp uh up in New Jersey, and you know we was out there and it was a struggle. It was a struggle for that summer. But one thing that carried us through this entire summer was the trailer for this movie, and knowing that the week we came back from camp, this movie was going to release. This movie was literally supposed to be like the prize, the light at the end of the tunnel for us after a fucking summer of just like, gosh. And this shit was so ass, bro.
Yeah,
It was bad. And like I know you have a friend who loves this movie dearly.
she loves it. Shout out to Liana. You're a
This
wild
movie
woman.
is not good, man.
Not even a little bit.
But then we gonna hit this concept of the studio interference. Because what happened with this movie, that trailer that you and I hold so dear in our heart, plus Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy makes it big. It becomes this incredibly musically intertwined smash hit of a film, and the studio wants that, right? And so they sell this movie to us as that original trailer of something that this movie was never going to be. And then after seeing David Ayer's vision, they said, nah, we don't like this. And they got the people who cut the trailer to cut the movie, bro.
Yeah, like who's at the helm over there, bro? Who's at the helm over there, bro?
I don't think the David Ayer cut would have fixed much of the problem with this movie. I think there's still a lot wrong with the movie, but it's unfortunate that my man's cut got butchered just like Snyder's cut got butchered. It just falls flat. It's a messy plot. It's poor direction. It's terrible editing. Most of the acting isn't great. Will Smith is Will Smith, but he's Deadshot, but it's okay. But we had a better Deadshot on Arrow. Margot Robbie is all right, but I think people overhype her Harley Quinn way too much. And Amanda Waller, fantastic. Viola Davis, she always gonna kill that shit. You know what I'm saying? Incredibly, it's just a disappointment of a film. If you want to say it's entertaining, fine, whatever, but it's not it for me. I'm perfectly fine leaving this conversation right here.
I feel that, bro. Yeah, it could have been way better. Let's progress to something a little bit more life giving. You feel me? We got to talk about Wonder Woman, which came out the next year in 2017. Wonder Woman, I think, was literally, man, like if we're talking about this is the main storyline, this is the hero that we want to see. I think this was literally the best depiction we could have gotten of Wonder Woman. I think Gal Gadot does a wonderful job. I think the story of her upbringing and her culture being tightly written into all of who she is, it's where Man of Steel and its differences kind of folded. You know, it was like we got to see or what you were saying about Batman not having a storyline, we got that storyline for Wonder Woman. So when she enters into the world and she's got these strong principles, but also is kind of a foreigner, and that's a concept she wrestles with as we're going through the World War. Like I just think the whole way they depicted this, the love story in the middle of it, it's just a strong film, man. I thought it was a great film. I love what it stood for. I loved its themes. I loved its writing. I thought its pacing was great. Its supporting characters made me laugh. Um, and then there was some great action scenes, my G. That's how I feel.
Yeah, Wonder Woman I think is fantastic. I think most of this film works very well. Um, Gal Gadot is great. It's a great like prequel esque type film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's got
Um,
that. It's got that. Tell me it doesn't have First Avenger vibes.
I mean, it obviously it does because it's similar to that. You know, I do think the writers may have mixed up a little bit between World War I and World War II with this movie, just a little bit, but
Yeah,
you know
just a
that's
tiny
okay,
bit,
bro, just a
just a
tiny
little.
bit. Chris
But the
Pine
but the
was
concept,
great.
the concept.
Yeah, on paper it's great, you know, and it's put to screen very well. There are some fantastic moments in this film, and I just feel like a better third act would have tied this movie up so well. But it loses all of its like emotional story beat towards the end for me. And
Was fate, but was Act One and Two enough for you to still be like, all right, I'll take it.
oh no, this movie is like a good 9. Like it's a fantastic film. Just surprise, surprise. Patty Jenkins said that the studio came in and said that they needed to have that big finale with Ares. I would have loved it if Ares just didn't show up because the entire film it's we need to chase Ares, we need to chase Ares, and by the end it's like nah, this is just humanity. This is how they are, bro.
Why do people even sign up to make movies for Warner Brothers? That's my question.
And then bam, Ares shows up. And then it's just it turns into like the little CGI spectacle battle, which I'm okay with those. It just didn't feel like that's what this movie needed. But I think overall this is a fantastic 9 out of 10 movie. I really don't even know what to go into to really just sell it. It's a great time period piece. It's fantastic to see her origins as Wonder Woman. Yeah, I mean, there you go. There's my take for this movie. Up next though, Justice League 2017. This movie, you know this movie. Everybody knows this movie. People's nickname is the Justice League for Joss Whedon, who came in after Zack Snyder had to step away for family purposes. This movie, to me, when I watched it in theater, I was like, it wasn't great. It's okay. And I still feel like it's okay. People say that it's one of the worst movies in existence. I think after watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, holy hell, is this movie just completely like dog shit on the street after being stepped on and scraped? I'm always recommending Zack Snyder over this, like, ain't no doubt.
Forever, forever. I'll tell people to watch it in two parts. It's long, all right, so watch it in two different evenings. But I'm just letting you know, Justice League was a disappointment, bro. That joint was disappointing. And it's not just we all kind of just endured as fans because this, Zack Snyder's family situation, there was nothing that could happen, man. You gotta do what you gotta do. Um, so Joss Whedon, I think they called an audible, bro. They did what they had to do. We all kind of flinched for impact. We got in there, and it wasn't what we wanted it to be. It's the first Justice League movie. Everybody wanted it to be so good, bro.
They took two creatives with completely
Completely different approaches.
yeah, exactly. They did that, bro. Like, who thought it would be a good idea to get the guy who did Avengers to do this, bro? Plus, Joss Whedon is really just a piece of shit. Like, I don't really care for him at all anyway. But like, you can tell that this man has a style that's just like, nah, it doesn't work for these characters after their initial startup. But some of the scenes that people like to shit on that I'm just gonna come in here and say I love the opening to the movie with the little kids and they're like Superman and they're filming him. People say that's a garbage scene. I love it because that's the closest I felt like Henry Cavill has been to what I want Superman to be like on the big screen. Again, I've only seen this movie twice. I saw it in theater and I saw it preparing to watch this shit. So like entertaining, yes. I'll watch it every 10 years right before I watch Zack Snyder's just so I can say, damn, he did that.
Anyways, man, let's move past this freaking piece of crap Justice League and jump into 2018 when Aquaman came out. And I thought Aquaman was actually great, and it was an enjoyable film, and it was one of the very rare Warner Brother W's in this journey. Them bringing James Wan in was a very smart move on their part. It allowed for this movie to have the charm that I think Aquaman's character needed to kind of be shown in light of. to make him stand out and to make him stick to certain parts of his character that we all know and love from the comics or other depictions of him. So, but at the same time, a refreshing take in the sake that, from the sense of how the story is told. Who he is consistent with the multiversal concept of Aquaman, but how he is distinct to Snyder's version. So I really appreciated this movie.
Yes, I think this movie is very enjoyable. It's a very vibrant DC film. It felt like something new. Like the fake vibrantness of Justice League was very noticeable, and so for this, you had it, bro. You had such different action scenes that the director decided to shoot, and I feel like this movie is packed a little too much. You got two villains that you're jumping back and forth trying to set both of them up, because honestly Aquaman only really has two notable villains, and instead of deciding to split them up, they did both. But yeah, for Aquaman overall, I just feel like it's a very enjoyable experience. I can't say I've ever put it on to just watch on any random day, but I think it is something new in this universe that was an enjoyable experience. 7 out of 10 movie for me. Yeah, I mean, respect for giving Aquaman his own movie in the first place, because people ain't think that was doable. I'm just gonna move into the next point. Shazam 2019. Remember how earlier when we was talking about Man of Steel and I said most of the time I'm saying Man of Steel is my favorite, but depending on the day, I might say a different one. This is that one.
Wow, you're telling me that's how much you love this movie?
I love this movie so much.
Tell me why, bro. Just tell me why. Because I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I thought it was a great film, similar to how I felt on Wonder Woman. But that's the issue with a lot of these films. It's just that it's not like it blew my mind.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of these movies are necessarily mind blowing. Maybe besides two of them,
But
but
to say it's somewhere up there as one of your favorites compared to Man of Steel,
oh no, it's my second or first favorite in the DC universe. I have it
that's
marked down as number
different.
2 on my letterbox. This movie is an incredibly fun and entertaining super film with heart, right? Because a lot of these movies have lacked that heart, and I feel like this has that. This has that great acting. Number one, Zach Levi. Come on, bro. I know you love Zach Levi. You gonna tell me he didn't kill this role?
Nah, bro, I love Zach Levi. I mean, I rock with him from Chuck, and it's great to see him take this role up. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy the movie. I thought it was a fun one. It was a fun one. But it's just it was cool, man. It's like a solid B. It's a solid B, bro.
Bro,
It's a
heart,
B.
bro. It's the heart, bro. It's the heart. It's an 8 out of 10 movie, bro. That's a B, and I'm okay with that shit. None of these need to be mind blowing, bro. You know what I'm saying? Let's be real. I'm okay with that shit. This movie had heart. Zach Levi killed his role, right? You know, this movie has an incredibly important message about family and self belief in both of those aspects with the character of Billy Batson trying to find his family, who he thinks his family is supposed to be, with his mother, who when he gets to her turns him away, bro. Who thought they were getting that scene in that movie, dude? Craziness. And he retreats back to the family that's trying to be there for him, that he hasn't been letting be there for him because he's been so focused on finding his mom. Like, there's family around all of us that we try to deny because we don't want them, even though they are the ones who are meant to be there. And we need to take that journey to see that. And he found that at the end, to the point where he bestowed upon them the gifts that he was given by someone. He didn't feel worthy enough to do it on his own. And so he shared that shit with his family, bro. That is fire to me, son. Come on, bro.
Yeah, nah, I understand. I'm understanding what you're saying, and I agree. That's great, bro. It was great.
It's a usual superhero flick. It is, bro. But it's entertaining, bro. And it's that family dynamic that catches me. And it's that heart that the creative director put into this film that a lot of these other films didn't do. That makes this so high for me.
All right, so then let's keep going. Let's move on to the next movie here. We're going to go into 2020, right before COVID. The Harley Quinn kind of like, I wouldn't say spin-off. I would just say kind of like solo story.
You mean the good old Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn?
Exactly. Which also is known as Birds of Prey. My opinion of this movie is this, bro. I didn't even see that, John, bro. I didn't even see that, John. You wanna know why I didn't see it? Maybe it was because of COVID. Who knows? Maybe it also was because It just didn't appeal to me. I didn't know what they were trying to do. But I bet you money, because I heard at the time that it wasn't a bad movie. I bet you this movie has a charm to it that I would appreciate if I watched it. So that's how I'll say.
I think this is another example of Warner Brothers letting a creative director and visionary do what they wanted to do, because this movie is incredibly stylized, and I give Kathy Hahn a lot of credit for this film. I have it as a 6 out of 10, but it's incredibly entertaining, enjoyable. I think that this is definitely my favorite depiction of Harley Quinn in this universe. Well, she's the main character of this movie, you know what I mean? They dive deeper into her. They let her hit more of just besides the girl on the team, you know what I mean? Like, she was more than that in this movie. But I still am not saying I love her. I think it's just very like, she did all right in this movie, bro. It was a cool take. You know, one thing I have to give this movie credit for, Ewan McGregor. I love Ewan McGregor. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Black Mask. What more can I wish for? He's such a great actor. Can't say much about him. I didn't really care much for the rest of the cast. They were all kind of just like there. But it's a colorful, fun watch, and it's perfect, in my opinion, for if you're dead ass just bored and you want an hour and a half to just watch something. It's not a must see though. Up next, we have the first DC movie to be released officially within the pandemic. It hit straight to streaming. Wonder Woman 1984.
Trash.
This movie is my least favorite movie in the entirety of this DCEU. And when I watched it last week for the first time, I couldn't believe that it dethroned Suicide Squad as my least favorite movie in this franchise.
What makes me upset about this movie, we could talk about the villain chosen and the way that she was depicted. We could talk about the fall from grace that the freaking 2017 film had to this level of storytelling. We could talk about all these pieces, but we do have to say something, bro. This came out in COVID, bro. And I think production wise, if we already know that when things were stable, Warner Brothers was folding, I can only imagine the mess that they went through to get this movie across the cutting floor. And I just think at the end of the day, it was the weakest thing I've seen come out of this universe. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
It's the weakest thing we've seen, bro.
And it's because of how strong the first one was. But then there are also decisions made where you're wondering, how the hell did that even fly? Like Wonder Woman consciously knowing that Steve Trevor is dead in front of her and still deciding to fuck around with this guy. Like, people that were upset about that decision are rightfully so. Like, it's incredibly distasteful. And then another freaking previously on the Wonder Woman character movie. Like, did we really need another movie taking place before BVS for her character? No, they wanted a stylized, fun 80s flick that just fell flat. Who rocked in this movie though? Pedro Pascal, because he always gonna come in and deliver when he needs to do his shit, bro. And that's it. Cheetah was whack. And I love the actress for Cheetah. She was whack. Wonder Woman was phoning it in. Gal Gadot phoning it in. I don't really want to talk about this movie much longer, I'm gonna be honest. So we gonna move forward, bro.
Here comes Zack Snyder's original cut of Justice League released on streaming services. This was a huge Battle of Saratoga moment, in my opinion, for DC. They shifted here, bro.
This was a huge victory for creatives around the world.
I agree too. That's a big point as well.
And I don't think we would have ever gotten this without COVID. I think COVID made this movie possible.
I agree 100% because it became, all right, well, we're trying to make money and we're trying to, and then it's like, but you can't make money the way you were making money before. So now it's like Zack Snyder gets to come back and use his credit he had from when he got, he didn't get to fulfill his Justice League. It's like, it was like they just respected, it was just a lot of respect. But we can't also neglect the fact that Zack also pushed for this to occur and that there were people in community that were asking for this film. And that's another swaying piece when it comes to the big man with the bag on what they're going to do. Zack Snyder's Justice League is almost 4 hours, and every single minute of it, in my opinion, is gripping. You could take scenes from this film and cut them into small little mini bites and do classes on this film. I think this film is just really well designed, well written, and we see the plot holes that definitely existed after Joss took over. So I really loved Justice League. I thought it was great. I remember it came out and we watched that joint until 2, 3 in the morning, bro. We just sat there watching it. So good.
It hit. Some people question whether or not it would have hit the same had we never seen the original. You know, when you see a piece of shit and then you see something that's not a piece of shit, you're more likely to say, yeah, that's better than the piece of shit, right? But, you know, I feel like this movie was fantastic. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it after I had watched it. It was just what it did for the characters of Barry Allen, Aquaman, Cyborg, the main character of this movie that was nothing in 2017. This movie hit. 4 hours went by faster while watching this movie than some of these hour and 40-minute movies that are coming out nowadays.
That's a good point. Yeah, I agree.
It being cut into parts was genius. Just everything that he was going for here works so well when it's not my main universe of DC. Especially when you see the storyboards of where he was going to take these films. I'm glad we're not getting them anymore. But I love this spectacle, this freaking epic god of a film. Corporations need to be giving their creatives the liberty to create the art that they've entrusted them to create. And if you
100%.
don't want them to do what they want to do, don't hire them in the first place to do it. But just to keep things going, up next, we have the Suicide Squad. It's amazing how Suicide Squad 2016 wanted to be Guardians of the Galaxy so bad and failed. And then when they brought the dude who did Guardians of the Galaxy on, he made one of the most compelling movies in this entire franchise, bro. This movie was fantastic.
Listen, man, I'll be honest. The Suicide Squad from 2021, James Gunn, my favorite film in this entire universe, hands down. I think they showed love to the team perfectly, perfect pauses, perfect action scenes, the pacing of certain jokes. I just think Gunn's great at that. It's the reason why we love Guardians, right? It's the reason why we're excited for that next Superman, right? So all that being said, I think he executed really well on this movie, and it made right and checked off each box that the 2016 Suicide Squad failed to fill. There's a certain charm to this team that I think Gunn extracted really well through the film.
This film is unapologetically a comic book movie. The villain is a giant starfish, and it's not freaking corny, and it's brilliant, and I love it. Shout outs to James Gunn. He a special ass dude. I don't know how he does it. From this movie came Peacemaker, a character that nobody knew before this film, played by John Cena, who actually does a really good job. Now I know you didn't see this show, so I'm gonna quickly just run through this. An incredibly emotionally gripping narrative with some of the funniest and greatest characters in this entire franchise, especially Vigilante. If you've seen Peacemaker, you know about Vigilante. He's great. And I'm excited for season 2, even though I'm a little bit confused on what James Gunn's entire purpose and plan is for the DC universe going forward, because it's supposed to be not connected, but connected. I don't know what's happening, but Peacemaker was special. I think if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. John Cena is pretty damn good on this show, as he was in the film, you know? These are just two really good back-to-back things from James Gunn.
Definitely, man. All right, now, so we're coming up on the close or the end of the episode here. We got about 4 movies left, and in 2022 as well, Black Adam was finally released. And this is something that had been announced so many years prior from when this movie released.
Bro, The Rock had hair, bro.
The Rock had hair when this was an announcement that was made. So I didn't know if maybe I had heard whispers, seen things on the timeline, but I didn't know if this was scrapped. The same way I'm still wondering if we're ever going to get a Channing Tatum Gambit. Like what's going, or I know Mahershala Ali's here as Blade, but like it's been some time since that announcement. Like what's going on? So to see this movie, I'm glad that it came out, but I didn't actually watch this movie either, bro.
And you don't have to.
Okay, bet.
And you don't have to, bro.
Bet.
Because it's The Rock, the superhero movie.
Oh, I hate that.
I hate the way Dwayne Johnson is nowadays, dude. His ego needs to relax.
You just upset about that Moana flick incoming.
That movie is only happening because Black Adam bombed. Dwayne Johnson, first off, let's talk about who Black Adam as a character is. He is the main antagonist for Shazam. And when they told him, hey, you know, where's Shazam in this movie? He said, oh, I don't want him in this. He had it so that He could not lose in this movie. That was a requirement. He could not lose. He is the protagonist of this story that he didn't even want Shazam to be his main villain. He had it so that it was just bumped to Superman, which, granted, whatever he did to get Henry Cavill to finally come back for a scene after being MIA for so long, W shit. This movie is just meh. Black Adam is Dwayne Johnson wanting to be a superhero, but deciding that he didn't want to choose a damn superhero to actually be. He picked a villain and made him a superhero.
All right, bet then I'm gonna have to still see it just because I need to see it for the point of like when we have that conversation when people be like, oh, well, I think Dwayne the Rock is like one of the best wrestlers turned actor. I'm gonna have to spaz. I'm gonna be like, all right, well, boy, have you seen Black Adam? So I need to know that. Dave Bautista. Anyways, let's just progress then, bro. Let's progress to Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Shazam Fury of the Gods came out this year, and it came out a couple of months, I think only a month or two away from when Black Adam came out. So there was a tension on social media between these two actors trying to do promo for their movie, specifically on Zach Levi's side, which I kind of thought was corny to me.
I get it, bro. I understand. I understand where he was coming from, but it was a little bit corny to be doing it the way he was doing. But there's a lot of corniness surrounding this movie. I'm gonna just take a shot in the dark. Did you watch this or nah? Because I'm guessing nah. All right. Uh, this movie was a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 for me, probably a 6 out of 10. And yet it still had some of that heart that I enjoyed in Shazam. And so, like, it's not like my least favorite. It's not something that I'm going to crap on. I'm just, there are aspects of it, like the villains that I think are weak, but like when the family, the Shazam family's on screen, I can't help but just enjoy the experience that's happening in front of me, especially with like Freddie Freeman and Darla and like those characters. But there are other aspects of the film that I'm like, that was corny. That was didn't even need to be in the film at all. But I'm here for it. People say that Zach Levi and Angel, who was the main actor of Billy Batson, play two different characters, and I don't really feel that most of the time. Enjoyable film, just 6 out of 10, whatever. But it is the final, most recent thing we've gotten from the DCEU. The last two movies that we're going to quickly discuss because they are not really related, but it is important to discuss because it showcases DC's ability and Warner Brothers' ability to have banger ass 9 and 10 out of 10 films when you let their creative do what they're going to do. It's possible. Joker 2019. That movie is just a phenomenal film. And people like to say, oh, but what about Batman? Like, people compare it to like Venom, and like, why do y'all like Joker but yet hate Venom? Why do you like Joker but you hate Black Adam? And the difference is because the creative decided that they were going to embrace what they were. And the character of Joker, they're like, this isn't our main thing. Venom is Sony's main thing. Joker's not a main thing. It's a story that they decided to tell with a known character and just shed a different light on it.
Absolutely, man, and they chose the correct actor to do that with. Joaquin Phoenix is known for these types of films, these kind of like pushing the boundaries of how a story is told, and it kind of in a weird and abstract kind of way. It reminds me of the aesthetic that Ryan Gosling has kind of set out to have with his career, where he plays these roles where there's a significant requirement to play these characters. Joaquin pushes himself like that. So to see him do Joker, it was like, I don't think you could, like, think right now, who else could do it, right? The only way I could say someone else could play this character and it be perfectly casted is if, again, the version is different. That's why Heath Ledger's interpretation of Joker is so special. But this kind of a Joker, where we get this unique take on this human story and how his mind is twisted and how sick he is, and at the same time, kind of twist the concept on us as the people who are normal. Are we the ones that are sick? It's just a concept that they relay so well through Joaquin Phoenix's acting. If we didn't have Joaquin Phoenix, I'm not sure that this movie would have landed the way that it landed.
Yes, and I wanted more after this movie, and that might be a great sign, right? We're getting the Joker 2, which is going to be a musical, and I can't help but feel excited for that. But I also wanted DC Dark, I wanted a new brand. I wanted movies that dared to take these villains and bring them into different lights. I wanted a Lex Luthor story where it showed that the only reason why he's scared of Superman is because he's afraid of someone being more powerful because his father beat him as a child. I wanted a Deadshot, Deathstroke, war trauma movie that showcased why they turned into that life of crime. I wanted that. And that goes into like, can Marvel do that? I don't know if they can, but our DC
They can't.
characters, that's why I love it. But when talking about different versions of these characters existing at the same time, like I said, Ben Affleck is killing the game. So is Robert Pattinson. We've spoke about the Batman before. I love it. You love it. This film released, they let Matt Reeves do his thing. He's getting a show. He's getting a movie. He's getting sequels. And I'm glad that they've opened their hearts up to say we can have 2 Batmans, 3 Batmans on our screens at the same time. And we're just going to trust that our viewers aren't going to get confused because that's what we're going to do. Let's just try it out. Who's to say we need one specific universe? No. That's why these characters exist, to be interpreted, because they're always going to be different. And I think the Batman showcases that very well. I'm excited to see where that future goes, even though I know that he's not the main DC universe Batman.
I just want to look at the fact that we already saw the tussle and the wrestle between the studio and DC. We already saw Warner Brothers and DC go neck and neck, and it looks like they figured their partnership out. That makes me excited for what can come and what more creative visions we'll be getting due to the success we're seeing on the uprise. Marvel, on the other hand, it almost is like, because it's been a perfect relationship the whole time, the ceiling feels like it's caving in on some of these characters with some of the stories that I feel like they're telling. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. I'm not saying that Marvel can't push it forward and be something great, but DC is really at a place where it can steal the show. And I think that James Gunn is the exact guy, which I know you want to talk about next, the exact guy to take it to that place.
We have 3 scheduled films left in the DCEU's kind of initial planning stages. This episode is looking forward to The Flash. So what are you looking forward to from The Flash?
Listen, you can go on the line, you can go on the internet, you can look on Twitter. You'll find people who do threads where they explain that this movie has kind of been 30 years in the making, the concept of a Flash movie in general. So I think there's so much expectation on this film to be good. And when I hear the opinions of directors like James Gunn, them saying that this movie is a good one, it makes me excited because it feels like it's verified. And I know that that's like, oh, where's your faith? Why couldn't you just go without the opinion of those directors? DC's been shaky. I need these types of opinions. I need to read some of this to get some assurance. These trailers we're watching, bro, they look great. I think what I'm looking for from the movie is a well-told, well-folded, no like weird pacing, but really poised Flash film with some fun. I want some fun, bro. I need some fun from Flash. I know Ezra Miller, part of the main reasons why they have kept them in this movie is because that is a special thing they bring to the screen. If you've seen Perks of Being a Wallflower, I'm excited to see that kind of the Flash with his hands on his waist and kind of tapping his toe type Flash, but in a different type of a lens that's much more tight and modern. I'm excited about that.
I can hear you. I'm just not personally excited about Ezra Miller as the Flash, just because I think the characterization of Barry Allen in these movies has been terrible. And what you are wanting is a Wally West. And so when we get to the Flash, that's going to be something that I'm looking forward to diving deep into. But for this movie itself, I'm looking forward to just whatever they can do with whatever creative decisions they have left in their tank, because this movie went from being, we're going to release this in 2018, to now it needs to be Flashpoint, but we're going to keep everything around, to now we have to reset a universe. So whatever, I'm just excited for a fun movie. But yeah, and then the last 2 films in the DCEU we're not going to touch on, because the truth is we don't know what their standing is going to be after the Flash. Blue Beetle, Aquaman 2. One looks fun, don't care about the other one. You got any 2 words for either of those?
Nah, I mean, other than I'm excited for Blue Beetle because Hispanic hero in DC. It's a big deal. It's gonna be insane. I'm excited about that. And the casting is fire. Homeboy from Cobra Kai is about to kill his role, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then the final question of this episode, we looked at the past, we looked at it, and we judged it, we critiqued it, we spoke about it. 1 to 2 sentences. What are you looking forward to from the future of DC Studios? Because for me, it's hopefully going to be a cohesive, shared universe that is meant to inspire.
Your description sounds like the comics, which is quite ironic. But yeah, man, I think mine, I would just say DC will be that, like you just said. But on top of that, it will also make room for depictions of its heroes that I think will complement the archetype. So much so that I think it'll create appreciation for other interpretations of Batman, of different villains from Batman, of Superman, of different villains from Superman. All of these concepts, it's not just cohesive in one single narrative, it's cohesive in its branches. And I like that, and I want more of that from DC. We're so glad that you could join us for another episode of CUZZO-OP. Next week, we're going to be jumping into all of the different video game announcements that have happened from a variety of shows that have gone down. I'm sure we'll even mention the PlayStation Showcase, which we've already done an episode on. Summer games are here. The announcements are here. We're excited to jump into that. So we'd love for you to tap in there. Follow us on every single place you can. Twitter, we're there. Subscribe to our link tree so you know when new episodes are coming out. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Just know every time you tune in to an episode of CUZZO-OP, you're always going to find 2 cousins, 1 podcast, endless entertainment. Peace.